It started almost 2 miles directly behind us over our ridge on things. And the winds that morning were pretty severe. But the winds were blowing parallel to us. They were blowing from the south to the north. So everything we kept seeing was blowing the smoke past us, not on us. We weren't getting much smoke at all.
And we
here.
never saw any flames at all.
We finally, about 4, got the notification.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we started
mandatory.
getting things organized and into vehicles, but we really didn't, watching it as closely as we had and having evacuated before, we really didn't feel like it was going to be, we might have to evacuate, but we didn't have any inclination that we really wouldn't have house when it was all over. We just thought it's going to go that way.
So by the time we caught the horses, got them loaded in, we gathered the 2 barn cats that we had, and just as we were getting ready to leave, one of the barn cats escaped. Never could catch her again. So about 8 p.m. we left the property on Saturday, June the 9th. And as Dee indicated, neither one of us had any thought that we wouldn't be coming back.
We assumed that there would be a mess because power would be off and you'd have,
Rotten.
refrigerators that had, sat all this time and freezers that had, so there'd be cleanup. But we just did not think that we would have the devastation that we ended up with.
So we're pretty okay. We're feeling pretty good. And Dee and I earlier had signed up for a CPR class. So we decided that, okay, we're going to continue to go to this CPR class. And so we go to this CPR class, and we'd given John our numbers, mobile numbers. In the middle of this CPR class, John calls me. And he says, "Joe, I've got some bad news." He says, "Your house is gone." Well, that's pretty devastating news to get over the phone on things. And we tried to kind of continue on, but finally just said, we can't do that. So we left. And it was 19 days from the start of the fire until we were allowed back up here. And when we finally found out they were going to allow us back up here to see what had happened, both of our daughters said, "We want to be with you." And so we drive in, and of course it's a devastating feeling to look at. There's nothing there. The indoor arena looks good. Our horse barn looks good as we walk up the way.
You can't even
So we
describe
walk
it.
into the barn, and the one thing, as I mentioned earlier, is we had a cat that escaped. We all kind of got down to the end, and we said, okay, the barn, we looked in the office and everything. Is everything, everything was pretty okay. And I kind of looked around and I said, well, should we try calling her? And there was kind of this hesitation on everybody's part, okay? Yeah, we want to call her, but we really want her to answer if we call thing. So we start calling, and pretty soon we hear this little bitty meow. And this is a cat that is she only wanted you to be around to feed her. She didn't want to be touched. She didn't want to, okay.
Very different from the other cat,
So we keep calling. She comes in. She jumps into my arms. Like, where in the world have you guys been? So it was, a real mixed bag. There was a lot of desolation about everything that we'd lost on things, as Dee said. If we had been more diligent about getting things out.
You do that. You go back over it and you go like,
why didn't we take it? Like the baby books.
Why didn't you pick up this? And you think that you're trying to logically think of everything, but you really can't, because you really don't think it's going to happen. The total devastation is not going to happen. So you're trying to get major things, but you're not thinking of all that stuff.
Then we got contacted by a group that was helping people with the recovery side of things. And you want to tell them about?
They basically said that they were part of Samaritan's Purse, and that they had volunteers from other areas of Colorado that they would like to come up and help us with cleanup. And primarily, at that point, you're looking at it going, well, what can you do? It's just a mess. And so we said, okay, we set up a time for it. They showed up, there were probably 15 to 20 of them that morning. And they started out with getting any big, huge pieces of metal, which were appliances and things, out of the house and out into a pile behind the foundation itself. And then after they got all that cleaned out, they did a sifting process. They kept saying, this is such a blessing to be able to help you. And we're like, oh no, you're the ones blessing us. And they were like, no, because we really want to be able to help you in this way. And it was a huge experience. And they sifted through as much as they could in the whole foundation area, finding pieces of things.
I never once didn't consider that we weren't going to rebuild because we love this piece of property. We've always said, hey, we've got $1 million view down the valley and everything else. And I said, no way in the world. We searched and our lives to find this place, and we love it, and there's not a reason in the world we're not going to rebuild. And that was before we came back up. So
Yeah. I don't really think that I thought about it very much at first. It was just, the house is gone. What do we do? I mean, what do we do from here? But, and there was a little bit of trepidation about, well, do we start, just build again on the same spot? Or how do we handle this? Because we didn't want to give up the place. We love it. And so
but you did question.
I did question him. Okay, are we sure that this is what we should go ahead and start forward with? Because it's a huge step, and we had never built before, and we never planned on it. So now it was like, okay, now you're going to have to, and that sort of thing.
So we started kind of thinking through what we wanted to do. So that was okay, we want an open-looking house. From my perspective, I wanted something that was fire-resistant as much as possible.
As much as you can't make it fireproof, we've learned that, but you can certainly make it very fire-resistant.
On it, and we wanted to be as environmentally conscious as we could be about the thing. So we wanted to design something that would be extremely energy efficient. So we started, going to a lot of the Norco meetings about the rebuilding and things like that, and I got some information about this passive house concept. Okay, and so started
What's
studying.
that? And looking into what is that?
What is this passive house thing we're talking about? And started learning that, okay, the Europeans do a lot of the passive house because of the much higher energy costs in Europe.
We think ours are high, but theirs are ridiculous.
So it's supposed to be, extraordinarily energy efficient. We'd had a foundation engineer, structural engineer, inspect the old foundation for the house, and he said, yeah, other than a couple of places, the old foundation would be satisfactory for using for a rebuild. So that sort of dictated the shape of the house from a floor plan standpoint.
And we felt like that was smart because why start, this is a beautiful spot up here which we wanted to be on. So we weren't going to really wanting to tear out foundations if we could use them. So let's just start from that.
You have remorse about things, and things come up in the funniest ways. You'll be thinking, oh, now where is that? And our phrase has now come to be, oh, that's in the landfill.
It's in the landfill. Oh, well.
Because you might as well smile about this thing now. It's over with. It was tragic when it occurred, but we now have an opportunity to build a house like we wanted. We've got a beautiful house.
Very efficient.
We didn't
Very
lose.
efficient.
We didn't lose all of the loveliness of our property.
No.
It's still a lot there. We've got a lot of black that we were still dealing with on things.
That's the reason.
As people will notice in my interview here, I got injured in trying to take down some of those black trees.
He's taken down a lot already, but this one got after him.
Yeah. My philosophy is, I don't care where you live. If something's going to get you, it's going to get you. If you live out in Windsor, you could be hit by a tornado. If you live in Houston, you could be hit by a hurricane or tornadoes.
Or tornadoes.
Live in California, you could get hit.
Earthquakes.
Earthquakes. And I lived through the San Francisco-Oakland earthquake in '89. So, you do everything you can to make your situation safe. But nothing is 100% guaranteed safe.
There's not guarantees. There's not guarantees.
You can't live in fear.